For the last 200,000 years, groups of men have banded together as a means of survival and for the purpose of moving civilization forward. Men built great cities, advanced modern technology, and created economic systems that still prevail today. Unfortunately, those advancements in economic stability have created widespread levels of comfort that even the most wealthy kings in history didn't enjoy. With no great purpose or mission, most men today have accepted this comfort and in turn have become soft, weak, feminized versions of their past ancestors. These men are content with spending their days at jobs they dislike, spending time with people they can hardly tolerate, and the most fulfilling thing in their lives is watching their favorite sports teams or getting lost in their favorite video game. The men of the Unplugged Brotherhood demand more from themselves and, more importantly, from each other. Through mentally and physically challenging in-person retreats and events, these men have discovered that growth only happens when you are willing to show up, force yourself out of your comfort zone, and above all, do the work. Don't waste another day squandering your potential to be the man you were meant to be. Reject comfort, let go of people that are holding you back, and seize the opportunity to join a true brotherhood that will challenge you to become the best version of yourself.
Hey guys, welcome back. 173rd installment of the Unplugged Alpha podcast series. Today I have a study that was brought to my attention on the topic of regret. It's not a brand new one. It looks like it's been out for a few years now. And it's really interesting because we've all at some point dealt with a relationship or something tied into intersexual dynamics where she'll go and do something stupid, and then she'll be like, oh, I regret what I did. It won't happen again. Well, this study on actual behavior tells us something completely different. So thought I'd share it with you today. Before I get started, again, thanks for watching. I know you guys could be doing anything else today. Make sure you hit the like button for the algo and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to be taking some call-ins. After I've gone through all of this, there should be time for a few call-ins anyway. The link to call in is pinned at the live chat, and I will drop it in all chat in a little bit. It's just that it loses relevancy as it sort of disappears in time. So I've got a little bit of a summary here that I printed out because, as with all of these studies, I mean, here, I'll show you up on the screen over here so it's a little more relevant, make better sense to you. There's a whole pile of crap to really like dig through to kind of get to the meat and potatoes. Like, this is published on Sage Pub. It's one of their journals, and the title of this one is The Function of Casual Sex Action and Inaction Regret. And it's, blah, 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 long ass story. What I did was I read it and then I sort of summarized it all, and I used Grok to sort of figure out what its actual hypothesis were, like why they put the study together. And again, my summaries are all over here straight out of that. So I'll get into the details and enlighten you guys in a little bit. So a few notes that I have here to sort of state right off the bat is that regret's very different for men and women. Actually, before I sort of get into some of these notes, let me just read you the hypothesis that the researchers cooked up. So the two that we're interested in is the hypothesis that they formulated around the gals. And the first one was, with this study, they had two specific periods of time where they surveyed these women based on, these behaviors, obviously, on short-term sex. And they had figured out, or had thought with their hypothesis, that with regret, action regret more specifically, there would be a reduction in short-term sex and bad choices in women. The second hypothesis that they stated before collecting all this data was that action regret, again, at point 1, predicts entering into long-term relationships or choosing higher mate value partners at point 2, especially for women. So they're basically saying, in layman's term, that women will probably be making better decisions as a result of experiencing regret. So let's get into it. Well, the study details for the participants, let me just close this window over here and this one. So the study details for the participants that got involved in the study, it's actually a Norwegian study. There was almost 400 participants, mostly women, and a good chunk of them returned for the follow-up time, which was 4.5 months later. An approximation is what they said. The methodology was sort of tied around action regret and inaction regret. And action regret just simply means regret over engaging in casual sex. And inaction regret is regret over missing casual sexual opportunities. Women were more likely to express regret over action, meaning engaging in short-term sexual intimacy. And men were more likely to express regret for missed opportunities for casual sex. So totally different. Like I've been saying for a while, men and women are totally different. That's just the way it is. But people like to argue that and say, no, we're the same. It's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, every time I get into an Evo psych study and read them, there's always significant differences. Let me see here. There's really nothing more from the methodology here. It's just, it's your standard mumbo jumbo stuff. But here's the key findings. So we talked about sex differences in regret, how women report significantly more action regret than men, basically. And what they're thinking is that, what their hypothesis was anyway, is that the function of regret is to correct bad choices and bad behavior to make better decisions later on down the road. So let's get into the behavioral changes. With women, action regret did not lead to fewer one-night stands, higher quality partner selection, or a shift to long-term relationships at point 2, which is 4.5 months down the road. Say it again. Action regret in women did not lead to less one-night stands, higher quality partner selection, or a shift in long-term relationships. There was no evidence of adaptive behavioral changes whatsoever in the gals. With men, there was no shift towards pursuing short-term sex. Surprise, surprise, men want sex, right? So a few other factors that they revealed was sexual disgust was a consistent predictor of higher regret, particularly for women. What does that mean in layman's terms? If she gets with a guy that she has buyer's remorse for, if we can put it that way, then that would be a very strong predictor of more regret on her part. But like we learned earlier on behavioral change, there was no change in behavior. In fact, it gets worse. I'll get into that in just one second. Higher regret was associated with a lower likelihood of entering into committed relationships at the second point. Fine. 2/3 of single participants reported at least one new one-night stand between point 1 and point 2, which is a 4.5 month span that they collected the data on. So today and then 4.5 months later. 2/3 of the participants, which are mostly going to be the women, engaged in at least one more new one-night stand during that period of time. Statistical notes: selective dropout occurred. T2 participants reported more casual sex and less regret at T1. So this is very interesting. So the participants reported more casual sex during that period of time, but less regret as time went on. So as a function of time, as women are behaving more promiscuous and they have more one-night stands or short-term sexual encounters, they express less and less regret and return to the same behavior more and more. No significant changes in mating strategies were observed, challenging the assumption that regret serves an adaptive function. So evolutionary psychologists are like, out there thinking, well, regret's to improve behavior. It's a feeling, quote unquote, that human beings feel, which force them to make better choices, which we didn't see as a result of the study. Another interpretation that they found was the study found no evidence that sexual regret prompts adaptive changes in casual sex behavior, contrary to the hypothesis that regret improves future decision making. So again, there's no women don't make better choices as they become more and more promiscuous. What they're basically saying is that in their conclusion over here, and I'm going to get to my summary notes in a second that I pulled from it, but their conclusion states that the study confirms sex differences in casual sex regret. Again, for men, it's mostly inaction. For women, it's action, but finds no evidence that regret drives adaptive changes in behavior. Sexual regret may serve as a gauge of past experiences rather than a motivator of future change, prompting further research into its role. So again, I'm going to go through my summary here as I went through all the notes. Few points here. It looks like there's about 10. So what I pulled out of this is women do not change their behavior even with regret. Let me say that again. When women express regret over bad intimacy choices with men, they don't change the behavior at all. So if you're sitting there and you're a dude and she cheats on you and she's like, I regret my decision to do whatever with Chad or Tyrone, it's not going to happen again. Chances are very, very high. In fact, chances on balance of probability based on the study, chances are actually higher that the behavior will repeat itself. Okay. The next point that I pulled out of is women are more likely to make the same choices that lead to the regret in the future. Okay. So if they put themselves in an environment that leads to a choice that later on down the road leads to regret for that decision to be with that guy, they will make the exact same choices and more of it, which will lead to the same outcome. There's no change in sexual partner value, even with regret. So again, that's one of the other things that they had tried to cook up was, well, if you have regret, then you'll probably, improve your positioning, maybe put yourself in better rooms where there's better guys. You're not going to hang out at the release store at the prison to pick up Chad or Tyrone and sleep with him. You're going to hang out at the happy hour where all the lawyers and accountants and finance bros hang out instead and meet better men. But again, the notion of expressing regret or feeling quote unquote regret doesn't lead to better mate selection. Like there's no change even with regret. Women also felt less and less regret as time went on. So you'd think that a bad decision compounded by another bad decision with regret following each bad decision would lead to the regret pushing them away from making the same bad decisions. But the opposite was true. They just kept making more of the bad decisions on a higher frequency. They have no idea why women feel sexual regret if they don't modify their behavior. So that's something else that came out of the study, was that like a lot of the researchers were just baffled at the end of it, like thinking, well, isn't the point of regret to modify behavior? But women feeling sexual regret didn't modify their behavior whatsoever. In fact, they saw that it continued in many cases increased. Modern mating is completely mismatched based on evolution, and their studies there. But regret should modify behavior, but in the modern scene, absolutely nothing changes. Second last point I have here is women should be more reserved and be concerned about things like getting pregnant, birth control, but third wave feminism polluting women's minds are going against the regret that they quote unquote feel. So the takeaway here that I summarized in my notes, reading this steaming pile of garbage that we were kind of hoping to get some positive feedback on that we didn't, is that women expressing regret for sexual choices means absolutely nothing, because she will do it again. So you can do what you want with that, guys. What do we got here from Scott? Women tried to dispense with regret as quickly as possible using a complex array of maladaptive coping strategies rather than sitting with the ambiguity and learning from it. Yeah, that's a big collection of words for these hoes ain't going to change. So what we've been told from the streets our entire lives, can't make a hoe a housewife. Women, you just have to trust the behavior. I don't know why he did it. He was drunk. I was drunk and he was cute and my friends left me alone, or they encouraged me to do it, or any version of whatever. No amount of regret, as evidenced by the collection of this data anyway, is giving us any assurance whatsoever that it won't happen again and that she'll improve her behavior, and that it'll change. So, that notion that I've used for a while now, taking the Teachman study overlaid with the Heritage study on female promiscuity is absolutely true. Like every follow-up study that we see that comes out on this topic basically says the exact same thing. Promiscuity and a history of promiscuity is bad, and it's a strong indicator that future promiscuity and bad choices will follow. So all of these traditional conservative influencers out there that are just telling you to man up and wife up these hoes with no prescriptions whatsoever about red flags or, minimizing risk exposure with marriage or any of those things, or even in the selection process, being a lot more selective as you're meaningfully dating and sort of going through the process of doing these things. And rejecting horrible women is ever stated by these people. It's only guys like me that are saying this stuff, where it's like, don't invite hoes into your life. Like you can't, you have the right to reject women that have made bad choices. And clearly any amount of regret, or I'm reformed, or I'm changed, I've gotten right with God, I found Jesus, whatever the story or narrative, happens to be, let Jesus forgive them for their sins, but you don't need to. And clearly it's smart to follow the data and the science. And, hey man, if they're made for the streets, if they're the village bicycle, then that's fine. That's what you got. That's what you're going to deal with. It is what it is. Let me get that call-in link for you guys again, and I'll drop it in all chat. If you have any stuff you guys want to chop up, we can get into it. There you go. That's in all the chat. But yeah, there was really nothing positive here. Like the disappointing part was they were looking for adaptive changes over the 4.5 month gap, but they didn't see it whatsoever. In fact, what they saw was a continuation of the behavior, and an increase in the behavior. So what do you want from me, man? I'm just the messenger. I just come across this shit and summarize it and share it with you. Oh man, what a brutal one that one is. It's like, it doesn't matter what study I stumble across, or you guys forward me an email or something like that. Hey, you got to take a look at this, Rich. And I try to look at these things with like a balanced perspective, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that I get sent that you guys want me to look at, and it's just like, yeah, this doesn't, this is studied in like flies. Like this doesn't translate to humans, or studies in rats and stuff like that. And it's like, and then you hear the guys on the opposite side of, this side of the spectrum, like the evolutionary psychologist students that have worked under David Buss that are now trying to push back on the way some of this data sort of comes out. But I mean, like the bottom line is that there's also the issue with stated preferences versus revealed preferences, right? And I think studies like this are really good for that specifically, because it just deals with the behavior, just deals with collecting data on, well, here we are at, point 1 in the timeline, T1, and then T2 is 4.5 months later. And T2 tells us that nothing changes. In fact, she's still a hoe. She's still going to run around. And even though that she expressed regret before, there's no reduction in the behavior. There's just an increase in it. Now, is there things unique to Norwegian women? It's Nordic country. Some people might argue, oh, there's only 399 participants. Norwegian women are absolutely different. They're like hoes to a fault. Maybe. But it's like women are women all the way around the world. All around the world, girls will be girls, man. Motley Crue sung about it. Dr. Feelgood tour. Same old situation. It's the same old situation, same old song and dance, man. That's just how it is. Anyway, that's what I got for today's show. We're 20 minutes in. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I'm going to take a quick break, drink this tea over here. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I'm going to wrap up, but the link to call in is below. I'll drop it again in the live chat for you as well. This episode is sponsored by richcooper.ca. Brothers, if you're like me and take what you put in your body seriously, you're going to want to use the Unplugged Alpha supplement line. An obsession with absorption is what sets this line apart from the others. You want to make sure that you absorb as much of the supplements as possible so you don't end up peeing out expensive urine. My supplement line is made in the United States from the highest quality domestic ingredients, and unlike cheap supplements from China in plastic bottles, mine ship in dark glass bottles to keep your supplements fresher, longer, and won't seep endocrine disrupting plastics into your supplements. Nothing is a hard tablet. Everything is in an easily digested, bioavailable capsule. You can filter all products by their various categories, including testosterone support, estrogen metabolism, fat burning, immune health, sleep support, and performance. Visit theunpluggedalpha.com/shop and use the subscribe and save option over here to get 10% off your supplement order, or use coupon code ALPHA10 for 10% off a one-time order to try it out. Men, if you want to know everything that I know today that I wish my dad taught me in my 20s, join the School of Unplugging. There are over 30 hours of lessons currently, a well-organized discussion board, and weekly Zoom calls held by experts with backgrounds in strength, nutrition, finance, investing, and entrepreneurship, all for one low monthly membership. Visit richcooper.ca and on the courses tab, hit the School of Unplugging and get started here. Guys, make sure you visit my website for my communities, requesting a private one-on-one consultation, or learning about my future events. And don't forget to opt into my email list over here to get my newsletter. Let's get on with the show. I was just reading the comments here as that was running, and Deborah said, does the study have any solutions? And it didn't. It didn't offer any remedies to the results of the study. But again, it was limited to, and again, the title of this was The Function of Casual Sex Action and Inaction Regret. You can go look this up here. Actually, I'll grab it here and just put it in all chat because I know that the live chat replays. But there's the journal itself if you want to read it. If I were to venture a guess, which I shall at this moment, a remedy to this situation is clearly regret for bad short-term mating strategies for women isn't a sufficient deterrent. So I think it goes back to like the stuff that I've talked about for years now. It's just fathers and older brothers need to offer reasonable guidance to their daughters and sisters and set up some boundaries for them, which requires one part, the dispensing of good advice and good boundaries from said participants in the family, because who would have their daughters or sisters' best interest at heart? They may not like the guidance, they may not like the boundaries, they may not like the restrictions on their lifestyle, but I think there's a reason why generations ago fathers would prohibit their daughter who might say at 19 years old, "Hey dad, I got a great idea." Let's say it's like in the 1930s. "Hey dad, I got a great idea. I want to go to Cancun for a weekend with my girlfriends." That kind of shit would have been like, no, that ain't happening. It doesn't happen under my roof. Okay. I think there's a reason why a lot of this like patriarchy type of restrictions on female promiscuity were in place, because when you just sort of like let women be as they become as a function of third wave feminism and modernity and where we are today sort of stuff, these are the kind of results that you get. You just get hoes. And while they might make a bad choice and have the walk of shame, there's those famous videos and memes and photographs of women in the morning, their hair is all fucked up and the sun's just coming up and they're walking down the street holding their high heels and their dress is all like, they're all still hungover and stuff, expressing regret for their choices that night. Doesn't matter. It's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again with a higher probability. So it's like, that like notion of notch count mattering, it clearly does matter. You know, if women spend their time, you know, their past running through guys, especially with short-term, non-committed type of encounters, the probability of that continuing in the future becomes greater and greater with every encounter, it seems. So if there's a lesson from any of this, it's like, you can't reform a hoe. She's going to be a hoe. She can go and sign up for some new religion, get right with God, look for forgiveness from Jesus, sort of thing. And, you know, like I said earlier, Jesus may forgive these hoes, but it doesn't mean that you should. So be smart about it. Anyway, that link to Colin's there. We got Kizza here. He hasn't been on for a while. Kizza, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing well, thanks, Rich. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just turning you up a bit. Go ahead.
Oh, sure thing. So yeah, Rich. I was just curious, mate. As I know you're a car guy, and it has been a while.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on the new top spec Corvette, the ZR1, where it's smashing all the records regarding, lap times of various tracks?
There was a car wow drag race. You probably saw it, half mile, where it ran up against Revolto, and the Revolto won. It's a good car. I mean, I don't know what it'll cost. I think you can buy a Z06 here for about 160,000.
Yeah, I think
the ZR1 probably be in like the 2.25, 250 or so Canadian.
Yeah, you're probably better off just driving down the border and buying it there and then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have one to drive it on rallies, because I just wouldn't care about the condition of the, the front end and the stone chips and all that sort of stuff, because it's probably going to be faster than like a McLaren 750, I would imagine, with less maintenance, less ownership costs. It blends in a little bit more too. Like, it's not as much of a in your face sort of looking car, even though it's got big wings and aero and all that sort of stuff. I like it. I mean, I've never really been a Corvette guy, and I don't like the interior of the new Corvettes because it looks kind of chintzy and cheap. But I'd have one for practical use, just to beat on.
Well, that's fair, because I mean, if you look at it value for money wise, it's an amazing deal compared to
ZR1s always have been, though. Like, ZR1s were like giant slayers since the Lotus built. What was it, Lotus or Yamaha built motor?
Oh, the LT4, the LT4 C4 ZR1 from
like 89, 91 or something like that, whatever it was. Like, since the first ZR1, they were always like giant slayers.
Well, exactly, and apparently then there's going to be another one. They're going to have that. Was it I think it's the ZR1X with the hybrid drive as well.
Yeah,
and I'm just
the
like,
Zora.
Yeah, like was it 1200 plus horsepower, and then there's rumors there's going to be even another one that's going to be even crazy. I'm just like, Chevy, what are you cooking? Chevy, what on earth are you cooking there? Like, what next? We're going to get a sledgehammer version?
Maybe. I don't know, man, but I like the competitiveness between these car manufacturers on the top shelf, making these crazy cars, because one, it's fun, and two, it'll trickle down to the masses like 5 to 10 years later anyway.
Oh yeah, like there's always seems to be occasionally these crazy power wars between manufacturers. Like in the 90s, it was the JDM brands as well as the German saloon brands.
Mm-hmm.
They were going crazy, and then the 2000s, it was like you had some would call the original trilogy of like the Enzo, the Carrera GT, and the McLaren SLR.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 years after that, you had the holy hybrid trinity.
Yeah.
Of like the LaFerrari 918 and the McLaren P1, and now you've got the new trinity. Was it the F80, the W1, and I forget what the third one was.
You'll probably find that they stick the Corvette ZR1X into a comparison with the W1 and the Ferrari, whatever it is. And Porsche hasn't announced anything that they're bringing out, but they may. But they'll probably compare the ZR1X to the McLaren W1 for sure. You'll see that. And I think the Corvette will probably beat it, unfortunately.
Quite possibly, yeah, because the way I see it is that Chevy are just cooking, and to be honest, I would not be surprised if they did a so-called GT3 RS model of that Corvette, give it like a full carbon ultra lightweight edition. They'll charge, I don't know, $500,000, and you can't really say no to that, because it's like, well, it's 1200 plus horsepower supercar, full carbon for like 500 grand. Feels
People make fun of the American manufacturers like Ford and, the Mustang brand and Chevy with the Corvette, but they've always done very well in racing.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, like people forget like GT racing. I mean, the Corvette GT1, the C6 model, it was a phenomenal monster in GT1 racing. Even in Europe, it challenged the Astons, the Maseratis, the Ferraris, and all that stuff. I mean, Ford obviously, even the Mustang, like the modern Mustang today, is a hell of a fucking performance car when you take it all around. Like, I know people talk about, oh, but it's not the Shelby models, it's not about straight line speed. It's like, yeah, but the 350 GT is still an impressive machine. Okay, it's not as light as people would like it, but guess what, mate? Like, these days with people don't understand safety regulations makes cars heavy. You can't. It's not like 20 plus years ago where you could make a super lightweight sports car and not have to care about safety regs. I mean, look at the old TVRs. They barely weighed over a ton, and they would kill you if you looked at them the wrong way.
Yeah.
You can't make those cars anymore. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't make those kind of cars anymore because unless it's like a kit car, so it doesn't have to go through all the crash safety manufacturing. I mean, not like that these days. I mean, obviously, you have more experience of how crazy cars were, in your youth.
Bring out more of them, man. I'll take as much fast shit as you guys can put on the market.
Oh yeah, I mean, hell, it does make you think. Though Corvette are doing this, it makes you think, God, what would a 6th gen Viper be like in today's world?
Do you guys get Corvettes in the UK? Can you buy them?
Yeah, you can buy them. The problem is they're a bit of a pain because obviously they're only manufactured in the States. You have to wait a long time for them to be shipped over.
Do they make them in right-hand drive if you buy them, or is it only left-hand drive?
I think it's only left-hand drive because of I think I know the last generation Mustang was the first gen to have right-hand drive because of the engine configurations, but I think the Corvette's only left-hand drive, just like most cars. But I don't mind that because, hey baby, sorry, it's my niece in the background. Yeah, I even if it's just left-hand drive, I'm sure they could give convert it to right-hand drive with like the headlights and the what's it called? Like how the lights point instead of a point slightly to the left, instead point slightly to the right.
Yeah.
Generally, but and also like it might be a bit of a pain because if it hasn't officially, I think the standard Corvette has passed the safety regulations for Europe, so it could be sold. Sorry, that's my niece in the background.
It ends up being quite pricey though with the tariffs and the import taxes to get a Corvette there.
Well, to be fair, after the renegotiation of the tariffs between Britain and Trump, I think it's only now a 10% tariff.
Okay.
So, but yeah, because ultimately I work in the manufacturing industry, and they were really upset about Trump getting elected because he did initially slap a 25% tariff on cars built in Britain to America, but then they renegotiated, dropped it to 10%.
All right, I'm just doing a quick search here. I'm just curious what the price is. The UK Corvette Z06 is priced at £179,000.
Yeah, when converted to American, that's about
$225 at current exchange rates USD.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of the performance, it's not too bad cost-wise. I mean, I think to be fair, like the base level McLarens are around a similar price.
What does the Turbo S cost in the UK?
Oh, Turbo S. I think your gen, was around 150 plus.
So it costs more than a Turbo S.
True, but Porsche have True, but I would say the Porsche in their aspect, they have the benefit of making so many 911s, and there's very little tariff cost transporting them to Britain. Whereas at least with the Corvette, you have to wait 3 months. Whereas the Porsche, I'm sure if they have one showroom, you could just buy it there and then and drive out the showroom. Yeah. But that's just a hassle of like international cars. Like a lot of cars, especially if they're only made in one country, you have to wait many months for it to be shipped over to you.
You know what I'm interested to see is this new GT car that Toyota Lexus is bringing out. They haven't badged it yet. They haven't said whether it's going to be a Lexus or a Toyota, but they had it at Goodwood, and they had them in the two versions, the GT3 and the road-going version.
Yeah,
that should be like LFA style of performance.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think what Toyota are trying to do with that, they're trying to pull off a quote-unquote homologation special for FIA GT3 spec racing.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Ford did with the 2016 GT, where it's technically a homologation special, and they obviously produce enough of them to comply with regulations, because this is something manufacturers have been doing as far back as the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the CLK GTR, the Porsche GT1, Hell, the MC-12 was technically a homologation special, and those things go for donkeys levels of money.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, trying to think what else is there car wise. I mean, I'm trying to think of anything crazy with car. Oh, I would say, Richard, would you ever plan on coming to Britain regarding any of these crazy car shows like Goodwood or the Autosport show?
I'm a little concerned that they might lock me up at customs because I've said some shit about the UK on social media for the last couple
Oh.
of years, criticizing the government for
Oh.
letting in so many migrants and locking up people for their social media tweets. Like, people have legitimately been locked up just for saying that they don't like something about government policy. So,
Yeah,
you know, one of the concerns that I have is, you know, how would they treat me at customs? And to be honest with you, I just can't be fucked till I go. It's just not worth the risk for me, and I'm not going to pay a lawyer to find out because, I mean, I've been to the UK a million times, so it doesn't really matter to me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because I'll be honest, myself, I recently, since I last called, I had a small trip to France. I used the Eurostar, and I was a little worried because I can say some spicy shit on the internet, but I managed to go through perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, and you know what I mean. So, but you might be okay. But then again, I think you might have. I think somebody said, I'm not sure if you said this or someone else said this, that you might have been on a list regarding personalities that were flagged.
Yeah.
So I can understand in that concern.
Yeah, I just don't see the it being worth it right now. There's nothing there that I should go and see anyway. Like, I've already seen it all.
No, fair enough. Then, if you've already been to Goodwood and all that, then fair enough. Because I'd like to go myself, but promise, it's just it's just honestly, every time I think so, yes, I want to go to Goodwood, try and get tickets. It's like, oh, we're sold out. I'm like, fuck. Pardon my French. Damn it.
You gotta go early.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Kizzo.
No worries, Ben. You take care, Rich. Thanks.
That's it. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. There was another 2 guys that popped in while I was chatting with Kizza, but then they left. So, I mean, guys, if you have a question and you're watching the show live, you're gonna have to wait your turn, right? Like, I'll bring you in. You know, you can watch the show from the green room, from the waiting area. It's no problem. Yes, I am a citizen. I was born there, which is probably more of a reason for them to come at you for stuff like this. I just don't trust them. You know, the Starmer government's been locking up people for social media tweets. I've seen it dozens of times. You criticize the government for you know, policies that you think are foolish, and their response is, shut up, we don't want you talking about this, and they'll send the cops over and pick you up. So I just don't trust them, which sucks because I mean, fuck, Britain was a great country. You know, British Empire ruled for 400 years. They had, I think at one point, Britain owned something like 1/4 of the world's land mass under their empire. So it is what it is. So who cares? I think we'll wrap it up on that note, guys. I want to thank you all for checking us out. This is an interesting one, right? So if there's somebody that needs to see this, send them the video, encourage them to get into the content. Grab a copy of the book. I'm trying to point my finger because it's reversed. There you go. It's on Amazon. Got a new one coming out this fall. The guys at the forum, you see the ticker on the bottom, that are attending my live event in Toronto, you can still get tickets at entrepreneursandcars.com/community. We'll be getting a signed copy of the book in early release in October, and then it'll be available to the public on Amazon just before Christmas, so November-ish time. Those that have seen it really love it, man. There's some really good material in the book, and as I did last time with the podcast, I mean, I kind of published the book and then published the podcast afterwards, after I put out the book, because it was such a hit. I covered a lot of the chapters in podcast format to sort of expand on them and take in columns and stuff like that. I'll probably be doing the same later on this year with the next book that comes out. Give you guys an opportunity to read it and then come back in and ask questions, and I'll explain a little bit more of the concepts. But it's more about managing your life as a guy over a long-term basis, rather than the first book, which was kind of like a summary, like a collection of some big aha moments that I thought that men should be aware of. Again, this second book is going to be a little more dense, a little further down the rabbit hole, and more about management over the long term for you guys. So If you want to get on that, you can get early announcements on, I'm changing the ticker now, by getting on my email list, which is entrepreneursandcars.com/red-flag. So there's that. See you guys later. Have an awesome day. Peace. All right, guys, if you enjoyed that podcast, make sure you visit my website at richcooper.ca to learn more about my courses, my book, The Unplugged Alpha, community, or booking me for private coaching. Also, if you are a Canadian with $15,000 or more of credit card debt and what you are doing right now isn't paying off the balances, then visit totaldebtfreedom.ca and hit get a free quote to see if you qualify to settle your credit card debt for less than you owe today over the next 48 months. Make sure you check out the top pinned comment on YouTube for all the links mentioned during the show. Peace.